This is Roger Simon.
I'm Lionel Chetwynd.
A bienvenue à Poliwood for our first annual, maybe last, Bastille Day show, when we will talk about, and Lionel will diss French movies. Lionel, as a young man, you were...
C'est Sophie, one will be enough.
Okay. As a young man, you were inflicted with many French movies. Tell us about this experience.
Well, growing up in Montreal, in the period that I grew up, these French films were not merely something you needed to go and see for intellectual purposes and to get your card as a genuine intellectual. You also had to see it for political reasons, because in Quebec, thinking amongst the French, alors, c'est des cinémas verts. You know, the real movies were coming out of France. And after the war, the existential movement in France had decided that the way they would deal with their guilt was by denying there was any connection to life other than the moment. And there was no truth. And that gave us the Modern Language Association and Jacques Derrida. And the first film I went to see, l'année dernière, Marienbad, last year at Marienbad.
That was
totally incomprehensible to me, okay? Now, and I'm sitting there, oh, ma frère, and they're all making, and I'm sitting there thinking, you know, well, I don't know about this. I wanted to get out of there, go to Plattsburgh and see, you know, Doris Day and Rock Hudson. So I thought, well, good films. And it had one of the great lines of all time, which sums up that whole bottom end of the Nouvelle Vague. Vous attendez quelqu'un qui n'existe pas. You are waiting for someone who doesn't exist. And that's what they were doing. I was schlepped to see Hiroshima, Mon Amour, and I left. But then I went with the same kind of people to see A Man and a Woman, which was, I mean, okay, it was a Mustang commercial, but, you know, with that wonderful music and so on. And we came out, and my friend Moriel, who's now a big film critic in Canada, his cousin said, I'm so bummed. I said, why? She said, because I liked it. I said, what do you mean? She said, I know you're not supposed to like it because it's so damn sentimental. And that was the point, that these films were nihilistic. But they were great French films.
Yeah, listen to Jean-Paul Chetwynd here.
Sorry.
you
was out of my rank.
I mean, that's one. The truth of the matter is, as we were growing up, the largest competitor to American cinema was French cinema, in their own heads and in the eyes of the world too.
Well, you had the British slice of life films, Darling, and all those.
Yeah, but if you go back all the way to the great French films of Vigo and Marcel Carné, I mean, there's not a lot better than The Children of Paradise. Is pretty monumental movie in the history of movies. And they did a lot of great stuff. Then along came that period that you're describing. Early postmodernism, it was in its own way.
Well, it was part of that movement, sure.
The absolute dullness of Alain Resnais and Marienbad and Hiroshima. But at the same time, and of course, most dull of all, the great idol Jean-Luc Godard, you know, about to be honored yet again and again and again by the Academy and so forth.
Amazing, an overt anti-Semite. It's really amazing that Hollywood would honor him.
It's amazing. And the other thing about Godard is, like Resnais, if you look at his movies now, you go instantly to sleep. But it's not, besides the fact that they're propagandistic nonsense. On the other hand, there's the great end of the Nouvelle Vague, and with all those women like Jean Moreau, that any heterosexual young man of 15, as we were, fell in love with instantly. You know, moves like Jules, and then Shoot the Piano Player. Truffaut went on and on and on with a magnificent career.
One of the very best of the French films was Belle, right? Belle, Jour. Sure. The housewife who becomes a hooker. They were examining themes of sexuality and behavior that weren't happening in the Doris Day and Rock Hudson films.
No way.
Where Doris would break out as a virgin.
And that, I think, was a great deal of what you're saying is a great deal of the appeal, at least to me, because as an adolescent, when those movies were coming in, I learned about life from French cinema, and in a way that the American cinema wasn't teaching me.
Many a young man experienced his first sexuality, if I can put it that way, as a consequence of a French film.
You know, I remember well Brigitte Bardot in God Created Woman.
God Created Woman, yeah. And by the way, they could do it to people. For example, Barbarella. I mean, but they can also make candy. Les Parapluies de Cherbourg. I know it's
a lovely movie.
It's a wonderful film, all in prime colors with great music, you know, and completely without artifice. And that was another thing we weren't doing in Hollywood. This is a period, I think, in the 50s when Hollywood films were laden with artifice. Now, there was the film noir movement. There were, I know, the stark reality and so on, and the British had the kitchen sink movies. But there was something about how the French examined the relationship between men and women during that period, Demy, Truffaut, and ultimately, to me, that the greatest love story ever made, came much later, was Lelouch, who did Toute une vie, and Now My Love. He said, I'm going to make a love story in which the protagonists meet at the end.
Right. How about the other? Lelouch was actually quite terrific.
Oh, I love
Lelouch. La Bonne Année, Happy New Year, is another excellent movie.
Excellent.
Now, this is it. What's interesting when we're talking to me, and I think this is a very American thing, although you're a quasi-bred American, we have a love-hate relationship with this country, which is, I think, probably as old as this country is.
Yes, we both love her and hate us. Yeah.
Right. And the French are the same way about us, as we know. I mean, you know, when I first started to go over there, because I was invited to the Cannes Festival, and I first started to get to know a number of people in their industry, and they didn't realize that my French was a little better than I spoke. So I heard a lot of conversations. I just sit there and say like this, the American doesn't speak anything, and I'm listening to those conversations. And
I have done that, and it's a lot of fun. They have such contempt for us as barbarians. But you know, one thing that would make your argument.
But they love us at the same time, and are totally jealous of us.
And look upon the Oscar and acceptance. And
that's
the
what they
English
want more than anything.
All the acceptance in America. Something did occur to me when you were talking about you know, Happy New Year. Bonne Année, was that the French cinema at that time, if you look at the Czech films that were coming out, Closely Watched Trains, or particularly The Fireman's Ball, the whole Central European film, very influenced by the French.
Oh, absolutely.
But it comes to this question: what the French really gave modern cinema was the auteur theory, the notion that only a director is deserving of credit in a film. You know, is that a good thing?
The idea of le caméra stylo, the camera is a pen.
Yeah.
Now, but that, you know, was a bunch of BS, as we know. On the other hand, not always BS, because when a Truffaut made the film, he really made the film.
You want to see their credits, cameraman, editor. Yeah, they were doing it was not an industrial approach to filmmaking like we had.
But you know, when Preston Sturgeon wrote and directed his films, he made the film too. I think the auteur theory is a limited theory. It's a theory that works in the case of people who are, very few.
They were also, I will say for them, people like Truffaut who could do Fahrenheit 451, which was a film of fairly serious, in English.
Yeah.
So you see both ends of French existence. Yep. The absolute idiocy of the elites. I mean, one of the great filmmakers, French filmmakers, was Claude Berry, who made those films dealing a lot with the Jewish part.
How about Mon Oncle?
Mon Oncle, Jacques Tati, you know.
I mean, it goes on and on, doesn't it? There's a lot there.
Wonderful, wonderful filmmakers.
There's a lot there.
But the elites embraced the postmodern nonsense movies, like Hiroshima, The Big Lie. I mean, and there's something in that for us to learn, that the power of the French cinema are in films that strong narratives, well performed, well thought out, and particularly had really provocative themes like Jules or Belle de Jour, and the other films are forgotten. They're just forgotten, as they should be, by the way. Godard, why the Academy is resurrecting a half-wit like Godard is beyond me.
Well, I totally agree with you. Yeah. I mean, you could call him a half-wit. I think he's worse than that. He's like the worst kind of totalitarian narcissist you can imagine.
I think he's even...
and worse than that, he's a total bore. So, I mean, I defy anyone to sit through and stay awake.
Was a film, a Truffaut film, which did kind of deal with race, where he falls in love with a Japanese girl. He's a flower dyer. And there was a cute kid like me. I mean, these are wonderful films that everyone should see. See Lelouch, begin with, and Now My Love is one of the great accomplishments of our cinema.
I would say Happy New Year, and I would say almost anything by Truffaut, starting with the very beginning of Truffaut with the 400 Blows, which is wonderful, and he just never stopped.
And Demy, never forget
Jacques Demy. Anyway, this is Roger Simon.
Et Lionel Chetwin, oui.
À la prochaine.
À la prochaine, tout à l'heure.